Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the robing ceremony of the Honorable Peter R. Foley to the Court of Appeals of Indiana. And speaking of our court, my name is Cale Bradford, and I am honored to be the Chief Judge of the Court of Appeals. And several of our judges are with us here today. I'm going to introduce them to you. And Your Honors, if you could just raise your hand so everybody knows who I'm speaking about. In front of me, facing towards you, is Judge Leanna K. Wiseman. She's the presiding judge of the 1st District of Indiana. Seated below me is also Judge Terry A. Crone. He is the presiding judge of the 3rd District of Indiana. And seated below me as well is Judge Rudolph R. Pyle III. He is the presiding judge of the 4th District of Indiana. And then seated down along with those judges in front here is Judge Nancy H. Vedic, who is the presiding judge of the 5th District of Indiana. Other judges that are seated up here in the front of the audience with you from our court are the Honorable L. Mark Bailey, the Honorable Margaret G. Robb, the Honorable Robert R. Altice, Jr., the Honorable Randall T. Shepard, a senior judge of the court, is with us here today, former Justice of the Supreme Court. Senior Judge Ezra H. Friedlander, and Senior Judge Edward W. Najum, Jr. I'd also like to recognize many of our special guests that are here today. Once again, just like the judges, if you could give us all a little wave, that way we all know who you are. From the State Executive Branch, who will be one of our speakers today, is Mr. Joseph Herons here in the front row. Deputy General Counsel to the Governor, Sharon Jackson. Deputy General Counsel to the Governor, Michael Nossett. We have a number of the trial judges from the bench around Indiana that are here today. I'm pleased to introduce them as well. From Shelby County, the Honorable Kent Apsley, the Honorable Heather Barajas from Montgomery Superior Court, the Honorable Sally Barish from the Boone Circuit Court, the Honorable Teresa Cataldo from the Elkhart Superior Court, the Honorable Robert Klein from the Lawrence Superior Court, the Honorable Mary DeBoer from the Porter Superior Court, the Honorable Sarah Dungan from the Morgan Superior Court, the Honorable Dana Kenworthy from the Grant Superior Court, the Honorable Gretchen Lunn from the Elkhart Superior Court, the Honorable Bruce Parent from the Lake Superior Court, the Honorable David Riggins from the Shelby Superior Court, the Honorable Brian Williams from the Morgan Superior Court, the Honorable Timothy Spar from the Miami Circuit Court, and the Honorable Thomas G. Fisher, retired judge of the Indiana Tax Court. Some of our fellow judges from the federal courts are with us here today. I'm pleased to introduce to you from the Southern District of Indiana, the Honorable James R. Sweeney II. The Honorable Robin L. Moberly, Judge of the U.S. Bankruptcy Court. The Honorable Sarah Evans Barker, Senior Judge of the U.S. District Court. The Honorable Mario Garcia, Magistrate Judge of the United States District Court. From the legislative branch, we're pleased to have with us today, who will be one of our speakers, the President pro tempore of the Indiana Senate, Mr. Roderick Bray. Also from the Indiana Senate, the Honorable Eric Cook, and former state representative and proud father today, the Honorable Ralph Foley. From the academic leaders of our state, Dean Karen Bravo from the Indiana University Robert H. McKinney School of Law is here. Mr. Steve Sanders, the Director of Judicial Clerkship Programs at the Indiana University Maurer School of Law. Other leaders in our profession that are here today: Amy Carozos, our Indiana State Public Defender; the Honorable Mark Peden of the Martinsville City Court; Chip Keller, Councilman from Morgan County, District 1; Adrian Meyering, Executive Director of the Indiana Supreme Court Disciplinary Commission; Brad Skolnick, Executive Director of the Indiana Supreme Court Office of Admissions and Continuing Legal Education; Greg Packmeyer, the Clerk of the Supreme Court, Clerk of the Court of Appeals and Tax Court; Katie Glick of the Judicial Nominating Commission; Karen Graves, the Administrator of the Indiana Tax Court; the Administrator of our Court of Appeals, Mr. Larry Morris; and the Chief Financial Officer of the Indiana Supreme Court, Aaron Hood. Now I'm pleased to and proud to introduce to you the Chief Justice of the Indiana Supreme Court, Loretta Rush, who will introduce the members of her court and make remarks on behalf of the Supreme Court.
Thank you, Chief Judge Bradford. Welcome. It's a beautiful room, isn't it? A lot of history in this room, and we get another piece of history being made today with Judge Foley. So on behalf of my colleagues in the Indiana Supreme Court, welcome. We have Justice Mark Massa, Justice Jeffrey Slaughter, Justice Christopher Goff, and our newest Justice Derek Bolter. We also have Frank Sullivan Jr., former retired justice and current distinguished professor at Indiana University McKinney. And I have to introduce you again, former Chief Justice Shepard. We have former Chief Justice Shepard. You're still part of our, all right, on that. And Judge Foley, congratulations. Judge Foley has been a member of the bench and bar for 25 years. I've gotten to know Judge Foley, watching him in the last 7 years just rise to leadership. He has served on a number of judicial committees, and he excels. He's on the Strategic Planning Committee. It really is a committee of just big thinkers. Where do we want to go? He's done it in Morgan County, and I have got the privilege of interviewing Judge Foley several times and talking to people in the community. And I don't know what's going on in Martinsville today, but probably not much. And every other person in this courtroom is named Foley, I believe. But what they told me was something. I mean, what they said was, one person said, you can't possibly let the governor hire Judge Foley to be on the Court of Appeals. Our town will never be the same. He has mentored. I mean, I heard from jurors. Jurors would tell me what it was like to be in a jury in your court. Even heard from your teacher that said of the 2,000 students she taught, she only can think of 2, and I don't know who the other one was, find out that she thought would be a judge. You've mentored. I mean, you're a school-based big. You go to you have a 4th grader that you've mentored for years. So the quiet leadership and the behind-the-scenes things that you've done in your community, the 25 years that you have spent in Indiana courtrooms, sort of that, I like to think of the arena, that hot breath of humanity that you have lived with is going to serve you well on the Court of Appeals. So on behalf of my colleagues, welcome. We're looking forward to the great things you're going to be able to do for the state. This time, do you want to announce the pledge?
Yes, thank you very much. You know, I think one of the things that makes the holidays more fun is young people and children, all right? And I think that goes along with robing ceremonies as well. So I'm pleased to tell you today that our Pledge of Allegiance, and as I read your names, I'm going to ask you to stand up, and then we're all going to stand up and join you. But these are Judge Foley's niece and nephews, Jacob Lammert, Patrick Foley, Caleb Lammert, Millie Foley, Sam Foley, Aaron Wilson, and Max Foley. All right, and then if we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. And when you are ready, if you could all lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America
Well, we're fortunate to have some fine speakers with us today, and one of those is the General Counsel, who's here on behalf of his client, the Governor, Eric J. Holcomb. So, Mr. Joseph Herons, if you could come forward and give your remarks, sir.
Chief Justice Rush, Chief Judge Bradford, justices, judges, honored guests, good afternoon. Governor Holcomb wishes he could have been here this afternoon for this robing ceremony, but unfortunately that wasn't possible. So he asked me to attend in his place and to say a few words on his behalf, and it's my privilege to do so. The governor first wanted me to convey his appreciation to Judge Najm for all his years of service to our state and its judiciary, and who has retired after a remarkable and impactful career, including 30 years of service on the Indiana Court of Appeals, and whose retirement created this vacancy now filled by Judge Foley. The governor also wanted me to convey his appreciation to the Judicial Nominating Commission for all it has done during the selection process for this appointment. The commission provided him, through its robust vetting process, with 3 outstanding finalists, each very capable and well qualified. Thank you. And as some of you are aware, the governor knows quite a bit about vetting and what to look for in judicial candidates. He has done it more than any Indiana governor in modern history. Why do I say that? Well, when the governor took office back in January 2017, he had no idea, none of us did, just how many judicial appointments he would be making during his tenure. At the time, he was simply focused on choosing well for the benefit of the state and its people. I fondly remember those early days of his administration and discussing what he was looking for in judicial candidates. And he said he wanted to appoint judges who not only would appropriately and faithfully follow and apply the Constitution and laws of our state, but also be fair, just, and serve with honor and distinction. And it was very clear from the start that he knew how important his decisions about judicial candidates would be to achieving those objectives. In the ensuing years, it became apparent that Governor Holcomb would not only make a mark on the judiciary of our state, but indeed a very significant one. To give that statement some context, Governor Mitch Daniels appointed exactly 63 judges in his 8 years in office. Governor Mike Pence appointed 25 judges in his 4 years. Governor Holcomb, on the other hand, during his 6 years in office to date, has appointed 81, with 5 more currently in process. And if you do the math, that's a judicial appointment every 3.5 weeks, going back to January of 2017, and we still have 2 more years to go. The governor and my team and I, on his behalf, have vetted in the last 6 years more than 500 judicial applicants for trial court and appellate court appointments. And working closely with the governor on these, I can say to you that he takes this part of his responsibilities as governor under the Indiana Constitution very, very seriously, because he knows that if he makes the right decision about an appointment, wonderful things happen. The things I mentioned earlier, our state and its people benefit from a judge who is fair, just, and serves with honor and distinction. And I want to say also that serving with distinction has a broad but important meaning to the governor. It's more than just coming to work every day, making decisions in cases, and writing good judicial opinions. And make no mistake, that's extremely important, certainly. But to the governor, serving with distinction means so much more. It means being a good and trusted colleague, means treating people with respect, being forward-thinking and innovative, always looking for new ways to improve the judiciary, being active and visible outside of the State House, for example, in community or other organizations, and developing and earning over time a reputation for excellence. These are some, but not all, of the ways judges can serve with distinction and make a real difference. With respect to Judge Foley, the governor first became aware of him and impressed with him back in 2017 when he applied for a previous appellate vacancy. While Judge Foley wasn't selected for that vacancy, he made a positive impression on so many, and we knew he was one to watch in the future should he choose to apply again. You see, from that first impression almost 6 years ago, Judge Foley appeared to embody the very things I've mentioned that the governor looks for in a judge, someone who's fair, just, serves with honor and distinction. During our own vetting process that we go through in the governor's office, everything the governor and my team and I learned about Judge Foley indicated that he possesses those important qualities and attributes. To illustrate, I want to share a few statements of note that he made in his judicial application for this vacancy. He said, "I took great pride in my role as county attorney and the opportunity it provided to contribute to the civil well-being of the county." He also said, "As county attorney, I attained a broad knowledge of substantive law, but I also saw firsthand the need to ensure that the principles of due process and fundamental fairness remain a foundation of our society." Another comment was, "The key to success in any collaborative effort is for the various stakeholders to share a commitment to the common goal rather than a concern for individual credit or self-interest." And lastly, "I firmly believe we must share our talent, gifts, and good fortune with others for the benefit of our community." Those statements say a lot about Judge Foley. And what we learned is that he walks that talk every day, and Morgan County and our state are better because of it. While there are too many examples of his activities to list here, I wanted to mention a few. Judge Foley presided over a mental health diversion program, and he was also instrumental in developing a residential substance abuse treatment program for the Morgan County Jail. He also sought and secured grant funding to provide legal assistance and mediation services to indigent parties. In 2015, upon becoming judge, he thought his county would benefit from having an annual State of the Judiciary address, which, since he initiated it, has been well received every year since. Indeed, Judge Foley has generously given of his time, energy, and leadership to many organizations such as the Habitat for Humanity, the Strategic Planning Committee, the Chief Justice mentioned, state and county bar associations, among others. And he has testified on several occasions before the Indiana Senate in support of important legislation being considered. We also learned during our vetting that early in his career, Judge Foley interned in the Marion County Prosecutor's Office, where he helped develop and write a trial manual for the office under the direction of Prosecutor Scott Newman and Justice Mark Massa when he was Chief Deputy. And I also want to mention an interesting tidbit that we learned about Judge Foley during this process. Back in 1994, when he was young, he served as an Indiana State House tour guide. And now, nearly 30 years later, he's earned a seat on the Indiana Court of Appeals based out of this very same building. So, Judge, let me be one of the first to say, welcome back. Judge Foley, in closing, the governor wanted me to convey how impressed he is with you, how well suited you are for the appellate bench, and how you embody what he looks for in an appellate judge. Congratulations.
Thank you very much, Mr. Herons. We're also pleased to have with us a senator from District 37, but also the president of our Indiana State Senate, longtime friend of Judge Foley's, Roderick Bray. Senator Bray, when you're ready, sir.
Thank you, Chief Justice Rush, members of the Supreme Court, Judge Bradford, members of the Court of Appeals, and friends and families of Judge Foley. It is a unique honor for me today to participate in Judge Foley's robing ceremony. I've had the pleasure to know Pete Foley for many years, and in many ways we grew up together. This is an opportunity to impart to you just to who Pete Foley is. Now, we know good judgment comes from experience, and experience comes from bad judgment. And so we know that Judge Foley has the benefit of that. For example, you don't lock your keys in your car when you go to vacation and park your car at the airport. When Judge Foley first ran to fill the vacancy left by then G. Thomas Gray of Morgan Superior 1, I knew he was a great candidate. Prior to being elected to that seat, he built a myriad of diverse legal experiences, from family law to estate planning, perhaps a touch of criminal law, to business and business formation, to estate planning, to litigation, and even collections. And let's face it, as a county seat lawyer, everybody does a little collections, even as for your own behalf. Now he brings to this bench those copious experiences, plus just under a decade sitting on a trial bench, taking in everything that came his way, and along with that, the perspective that that experience provides. As I think about it, Pete's ascension to the Court of Appeals is apropos. Certainly it made sense for him to join the legal profession, like his father, Ralph Foley, did before him, who practices his career in Morgan County, and his father before him, Charles Foley, both with a strong, vibrant county seat practice. But more than that, as many of you know, and has been mentioned here today already, that Ralph Foley had a long and distinguished service in the Indiana General Assembly. Now, it was the lower house, not the Senate, but pardon me, I couldn't resist a little well-traveled humor there. But nevertheless, it was a great career. And during his distinguished service, Ralph Foley believed passionately in a strong relationship between the separate branches of government. That balance of power that our forefathers so fervently believed in, and rightfully so, certainly that relationship should be at arm's length. But it meant he held a deep and abiding respect for the work of the judicial branch. This is particularly the case based upon former Representative Foley's long and significant service as chair of the House Judiciary Committee. But it means more than that. It means a recognition of the importance of strong relationships and plenty of communication between the two branches of government and the people that occupy those seats. I know this is a particularly proud day for Judge Foley's father, as it should be, and I can say now he has more chance to speak to a member of the appellate court than he ever has had before. As I have said, it's been my pleasure to know Judge Foley for many years and to practice alongside him, to practice in opposition to him, to practice in front of him during his time on the bench, and simply to observe the wise and prudent counsel over his years of practice. He served as counsel for Morgan County for many years, and many of you will well understand that some pretty talented mediation skills are necessary in that job. Not every office holder agrees every time with what the county council or the county commissioners say or do, or even with what other office holders say or do. Pete always handled those issues with grace and tact, partially because he held the trust and the confidence of the people that were involved. But also, too, finding common ground is a skill he has always possessed. You always want to know anyone who gets appointed to this position has the support of his or her community back home. And a quick look around this room and around this chamber makes that very clear, that he certainly does. Judge Foley is many things. He is a man of faith. He is bright. He is prudent and thoughtful. He is kind and empathetic. He is a devoted husband, father and son, and he is a true friend. On some level, he's a bit of an athlete. In fact, he was a pretty talented high school basketball player in his day, and the timing of his high school years actually gave him the opportunity to play with perhaps one of the most famous high school basketball players that Indiana has ever known, Damon Bailey. Damon Bailey still holds the record for points scored in the Indiana High School Athletic Association with 3,134 points scored in his high school career. And as I recall, many of those, and I mean many of those, were scored with Pete Foley chasing him around the basketball court. Still to this day, he is a runner, and I don't mean just out for a slower jog on a Sunday morning, but a marathon runner. And he carries with him the dogged persistence and the long view that inevitably comes with that exercise. So, to the Chief Justice and members of the Supreme Court, and in particular members of the Indiana Court of Appeals, I can tell you what you are getting in Judge Foley. It is not only a member to serve alongside you who has the work ethic, experience, and intellect to share in the heavy load that unceasingly flows your direction, but you're also getting a gentleman who is particularly skilled at bridging differences between colleagues and solving thorny problems, even in just the operation of the office or in any of the practical challenges that come with government service. He's been doing that with alacrity in Morgan County as county attorney and judge for many years. And Judge Foley, I say to you, I am excited for you. Congratulations and Godspeed.
Well, we've reached that time in the ceremony where we will now, in just a few moments, Chief Justice Rush will swear in Judge Foley to the Court of Appeals in Indiana, and he's going to have some assistance in that process. His wife, Jill, and his children, Maggie and Anna, are with us, and they will join their father and husband there at the podium. You can go on up. And then when he's robed, his parents, Representative Ralph Foley and Ann Foley, will assist in that robing. So if they could step up as well, please. Chief Justice Rush, when you think everything is ready, you can proceed. Thank you.
I state your name.
I, Peter R. Foley,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Indiana,
and the Constitution of the State of Indiana,
and that I will faithfully and impartially
and that I will faithfully and impartially
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
as a judge of the Court of Appeals of Indiana
as a judge of the Court of Appeals of Indiana,
according to the best of my skill and ability,
according to the best of my skill and ability.
so help me God.
So help me God. You know, I'm not in it very often anymore. It's used to come on and off multiple times a day, not so much anymore. Thank you all for coming and sharing in this wonderful day for me and my family. It means the most to us to have our friends, family, colleagues, and the other important people in our life share in these moments. As I consider this day and what it means to me, two words have come to my mind: that of gratitude and duty. Gratitude for the honor of the appointment, gratitude for the love, influence, assistance, and friendship of so many of you that are gathered here today. The privilege to serve on this court comes with the duty to uphold the oath of office, to meet the expectations of that appointment, to continue the legacy of those who have come before me, and to fulfill the obligations to my fellow members of the court, the legal community, and the parties that may appear before us. I am truly honored and humbled by Governor Holcomb's appointment. Thank you, Joe, for your kind words, and please pass on to the governor my personal thanks and commitment to honor the expectation of that appointment each and every day. The past several months have truly been a whirlwind, beginning with the application and interview process, interview before the Judicial Nominating Commission, quick trip to Spain with Maggie and the family put in between that, and then culminating with that call from the governor, informing me that I would be appointed to the vacancy of the Court of Appeals. As I recall that call, the governor inquired as to whether I could make a press conference scheduled for the next day. Let me think. I think I'm open. The whirlwind continued with the task of concluding my work at the trial court, beginning the work here at the Court of Appeals. Thank you to the members of the Judicial Nominating Commission for your dedication to nominating qualified candidates for appointment by the governor. I am all too aware of the hours each of you has devoted to this process. I would also like to recognize the two qualified and worthy candidates who were nominated along with me, Stacey Uliana and Judge Kelsey Hanlon. I've had the privilege of knowing each of them personally prior to this process, and I am confident that either would have been an excellent addition to the court. To my parents, Ann and Ralph Foley, thank you for raising me and my brothers in such a loving and encouraging household. You provided us with a wonderful childhood. You maintained a balanced approach with each of us, whether we were succeeding or failing. But in all instances, there was a backstop of love and encouragement. You were family-focused, hardworking, charitable with your time and money, but always maintained a loving commitment and devotion to each other. You know, as a trial court judge, I often found myself in a custody case, lecturing the parents about how their behavior of parents was being observed by their children and would serve as a model for that child's adult relationships. And in each of those instances, as I did so, I also reflected on my own childhood and how fortunate I was to have you as parents. Thank you. To my wife, Jill, daughters Maggie and Anna, each of you have given me more and been a larger influence on my life than you will ever know. Thank you, Jill, for your support, patience, and sacrifice. Being the wife of a small community trial court judge is not always easy. To Maggie and Anna, each of you are beginning your journeys into adulthood now. Always be willing to take a chance on an opportunity. Challenge yourselves. There will be failures along the way, but no matter where life may take you, always pursue what is good and right. To my brothers, Brian and David, I'm still that little brother that looks up to each of you. Although I'm still confident that if we went out to the driveway and played a game of hoops, I could still take you. Despite what Senator Bray may think. I am thankful and blessed that we remain such good friends in addition to being brothers. To the Howard family, my wife's parents, Phil and Barb, her sisters, Suzanne and Deborah, their husbands, families, the nephews and nieces, thank you all for providing Jill and me with such a loving and devoted family. I would also like to thank my extended family, those who traveled to be here, my Uncle John and Cousin Brad, both attorneys from Milwaukee, my Uncle Don Foley, who was a longtime practicing attorney here in Indianapolis and who I had the great privilege to try a few cases with, the Sadiq family, the Indianapolis Foleys, and those family members who could not be here and may be watching from afar, John and Steve Mays in Florida and your families, and all the other cousins, aunts, uncles, thank you. Thank you to Mark Peden, my law partner, who together with my father served as my mentors in this profession. Each of you have taught me how to work hard, care about your clients, conduct yourself with integrity, have a sense of humor, but most importantly, to enjoy the practice of law. To my colleagues at the Morgan County Bar, both past and present, I thank you as well. When I first started as an attorney, I could sense that I was accepted by the experienced attorneys in town, people like Tim Kearns, Steve Harris, Phil Smith, Roger Coffin, Joe Barker, the list goes on. I had to prove myself, but I did know and could feel from those experienced attorneys that they cared about me and wanted me to succeed. That is a very powerful thing to convey to a young attorney. That desire that you see that attorney succeed. To the members of the bar in Morgan County, that's your duty for those that come, who are coming in the years to come. To the present members of the Morgan County Bar, thank you for making my experience as judge at Morgan Superior Court 1 so enjoyable and fulfilling. Thank you to my colleagues at the Morgan County Judiciary, both retired and serving. You have been both mentors and partners in the continuing improvements to the delivery of justice in Morgan County. I'm excited to see what the future holds back home. Also, thank you to my staff at Morgan Superior Court 1 who are all here today. It really has been a family experience in doing our work there at the trial court, and you'll be missed dearly. Thank you to my good friends and colleagues from the trial bench who are here today, also known as the BCE, Best Class Ever, the Indiana Graduate Program for Judges, circa 2018. Having you with friends and colleagues has been a blessing. It's been a true joy of an unanticipated joy of the trial bench to get to know each of you and to share as we do and when we get together. Being in this room and at this moment, one can feel the importance and significance of the work that is accomplished here. The work of this court has been ongoing since 1891. There have been 474 judges serving prior to my appointment. In that time, I believe there was only one prior judge who was a resident of Morgan County at the time of appointment, John C. McNutt. He served for approximately 8 months beginning in January 1917. He's better known as the father of Paul V. McNutt, who went on to be governor of the state of Indiana. So, as I figure and calculate it, if I can serve through the end of next year, I will have him and Justice Moulter beat. But also, the infrequency of those appointments from my home county underscore the privilege that this appointment brings with it. The duty of a judge of the Court of Appeals, as set forth in that oath, is to faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of the judge of the Court of Appeals. Clearly, as stated in the oath, that duty requires the judge to uphold the Constitution of both the state of Indiana and the United States. But it means much more than that. One aspect of that duty is to uphold the legacy of the members of this court, past and present, including Judge Najum, whose seat I'm filling in the 1st District. Judge Najum has served the court for nearly 30 years. He's well known for his legal scholarship, dignity, and affable nature. He exemplified what it means to be a judge of the Court of Appeals. Thank you, Judge Najum. I am firmly convinced that the duties of a judge of this court also include a commitment to the improvement of the administration of justice in the state of Indiana. This requires a judge to be dedicated to the work of the court that lies outside the resolution of the cases before it, to be leaders within the judiciary and the legal community. Finally, as members of this court, we share a duty to our other fellow members of the court. We are 15 separate judges, but we are one court. We must remain committed to the work of the court and each other, ensuring that each of us is in the best position to succeed. Whenever my work for the court may conclude, it is my hope and desire that I will have been able to fulfill those duties required by my oath each and every day that I had the privilege to serve as a member of this court. Thank you.
have a seat. Thank you. Judge Foley, you found your way over to sit with your colleagues. You're showing great promise right out of the box. Well, as we begin to wind down this formal part of our celebration, we once again congratulate you, Judge Foley, and your family, and on your appointment to the Court of Appeals. My colleagues and I, now your colleagues, look forward to many years of combined service to the people of this great state. We welcome you, your wife Jill, your daughters Maggie and Anna to our court family as well. It's always a pleasure to learn about your new colleagues, and one of the things that's assisted me in doing that is by reviewing their application for the Court of Appeals, and also the Chief Justice transmits an official letter to the governor that gives some breakdown, or excuse me, gives a lot of background about the 3 finalists that are named to the Court of Appeals, from which the new judge is selected by the governor. And in reviewing your materials, Judge Foley, I was impressed by your skills as a builder, all right? So it doesn't go back that far, so I don't know if you were great with Legos or a Lego master growing up. But I did note that you spent one summer in your youth working for a fence installation company, all right? But more recently, you spent many years on the Morgan County Board of Directors for the Habitat for Humanity. Not only did you roll up your sleeves and participate on build days, but perhaps even more important, you put on your suit and provided pro bono legal services for that organization for a number of years. You served on the building commission at your church during the construction of a new building. Very admirable. You helped build the Morgan County Residential Substance Abuse Program. And perhaps more important at all, you've helped build our future by serving as a lunch mentor to school children in your community. Judge Foley, your experience as being a builder, whether it be structures, programs, or relationships, will undoubtedly serve you well as you embark on this next chapter of service to the people of our state. As an appellate judge, you will at times be called upon to follow precedent, and at other times to build precedent for the future. As a judge and steward of the Court of Appeals, you will forge each day to ensure equal justice under the law. We know that you will use your talents and abilities to the benefits of our fellow Hoosiers by helping to enhance this foundation. Since we're talking about building today, I thought a quote from a builder might be appropriate, so I found one from a builder named Adrian Clarkson, and it reads as follows: "Each of us is carving a stone, erecting a column, or cutting a piece of stained glass in the construction of something much bigger than ourselves. In the context of the law, we build something bigger than ourselves, the present and the future for our fellow citizens here in our beloved Indiana. So once again, from all of us, your colleagues, to you and your family, congratulations, Judge Foley." And we are having such a nice time today. Why stop the fun now, all right? So we're going to adjourn the official part of the proceedings, and please join the Foley family and the Court of Appeals colleagues out here in the foyer for refreshments to celebrate this fine occasion. Once again, congratulations, sir.